Perfect day, perfect result for Arsenal. 3-0 against Sunderland. Never easy against anyone in the Premier League, but they're a resilient side. I know they missed Granit Xhaka, but they're a resilient side. They're physical, they can be difficult to break down, although I thought they were quite open today. And Arsenal go and get a comfy 3 points and 3 goals. And Victor Gyokeres got 2 of them. I think this is the day. Some of you might say that this is going too far, it's a bit hyperbolic, but I think this is the day that Victor Gyokeres arrived at Arsenal. And it's not just because he scored 2 goals, it's not because he put in a good performance. I'll go into more detail in a sec about that, but I just felt that this was quite an important day in terms of Arsenal, Gyokeres, the fan base, everyone just kind of understanding who he is, what his role in the team is. I know when we were looking to sign a striker, we were looking to sign the guy who we thought could start week in, week out all the time and was going to fire us, with plenty of goals to the title. But the reality is that that was probably expecting far too much of a player who we didn't really know anything about in Premier League football. And then when we, saw him struggling earlier this season, only even a few weeks back, that was also going too far the other way. This feeling that, he's not good enough, his touch is a mess, he just doesn't look like a Premier League footballer. That was going too far the other way too. And I think we've landed on something that feels a lot more what Victor Gyokeres' role is going to be. And I said I was going to talk about it later, but you know what? I've started, so we may as well carry on. Victor Gyokeres, I gave him a lot of praise in the first half of the season. Well, first third, really, before his injury and his return against Chelsea, obviously, back in November. I liked him. Do you remember Burnley away, for example? I thought he looked good in, and I thought he was doing things that the team were benefiting from. I think since he's returned, he's struggled for confidence, but I also think teams have realised that he will attack space, and so it's been harder for him to find that space in behind more centrally to go at teams and get shots off. So he's having to adapt his game, which means having to be better with his back to goal, he's having to be more physical, he's having to be a bit more purposeful with his touch, and he's going to have to be a little bit more ruthless in front of goal. And I think you saw all of that today. That's why I talk about him having arrived in some way, because I think it was the game in which he put in the kind of performance that I think you're going to need typically week in, week out in the Premier League. But doing it from the bench, I think, was important too, which I'll talk about in a sec. There were moments where we looked to hold it up with him. It didn't always work. Rice was visibly frustrated when he tried to play into Gyokeres and he lost it, although I didn't think it was a great pass into him. But there were definitely moments where he looked after the ball, he was stronger than the defenders, he took the touch into the space that was there, used his pace to just get there, look after it, drive it around, and then sort of bring others into play. I thought it was really good from Gyokeres. And then when he gets the chances, Martinez does all the great work for the third goal. We'll talk about that in a sec. But what I like about the second goal was he's just ruthless with it. He basically sets himself and he says, I'm hitting this as hard as I can. And I like this because I think there's been other games where he's maybe thought about it too long. He's tried to set himself. He's tried to wonder about the finish. Victor Gyokeres, the comps at Sporting, we saw them and it's translatable across leagues. You can hit that ball really hard, okay? So just put your laces through it. And it was good to see. Even as he's slipping, he's sort of reaching to get there. It's a really good finish with plenty of power and he makes it difficult for the goalkeeper. He's not miles away. I think he even gets a touch on it. But that's the Victor Gyokeres that we want to see. So the way he held up the ball, the way he played Sunderland, the spaces he was trying to attack, the movement, and then the finishes, but really that first one, felt like Victor Gyokeres arriving for me. It felt like Victor Gyokeres giving the kind of performance that I looked at and went, yeah, that is translatable across most games in the league. That feels like a Premier League centre-forwards performance that you're going to need week in, week out. Whereas maybe some others, even when we looked good or others where he struggled, I was sort of thinking, I don't know if this is a fit, and I'm starting to worry about that. But I'd also add that I think they said on commentary, he's got 13 goals now so far. What was the 7th of Feb? 13 goals by 7th of Feb is really not a bad return. He's well on course to hit 20 in all comps, which is about what I expected. Now, football, you watch it with your eyes, right? That's not to say that he's looking an absolute success or that everything's been brilliant. But that's almost exactly what his job was for this team. I don't know about any of you, but I wasn't convinced that he was coming in and he was going to rip Havertz's spot from him or Jesus, or that Arteta was necessarily going to love him and always think that it was, the game state would always suit him. But what I do like about Gyokeres is that he puts the ball in the back of the net. And he's done it 13 times across three competitions. I don't think he didn't come on against Portsmouth, did he? So he's done it 13 times across three competitions, two of which we're leading the tables in, and one we're in the final for. So you've got to give him credit. Like, I think we're just finding a happy medium in terms of, okay, maybe he's not the world-class elite goal scorer we hoped he was going to be, but he's certainly a reliable finisher, bagsman, who you can basically just rely on to chip in with some goals. And what I liked about today was Sunderland, and I said this in my preview, it was going to require more tech on the pitch. I'm glad that Trossard came in. I'm glad that Calafiori was at left back, although he was a mess today, actually. And I like that we went Havertz and Jesus. I thought that was good. That was a good use from Arteta of complementing profiles to, try and break down a stubborn Sunderland side. But then, when the game needed a little bit more unpredictability and a little bit more brute force in front of goal, Gyokeres came on, and I don't think any of us were sat there going, our mega money signings on the bench in a must-win game. We're going, yeah, okay, this is probably your role in the squad. And some will say, wow, so you bought a squad player, 65 million. Welcome to football. Welcome to modern Premier League football. That's the level that clubs are operating at. Liverpool, Man City, that's especially Man City, Chelsea, Man United, the money that have been spent on players that ultimately just play a part. Now, I think Gyokeres is going to more than just play a part. I think he could be quite crucial to us because he gives us something different, and he is our most reliable goal scorer in the squad. But anyway, sorry for that long ramble on Gyokeres, but I just felt today, I wanted to go into that in a bit of detail, I just felt this was the game that for me, just he landed. He arrived as like a, yeah, I get it. I get what you can give us. I've seen a performance that feels sustainable from you. You've got 2 goals. Arsenal have used you well. Arteta's understood this wasn't maybe the game to start you in, but he was certainly a finisher for this game, as in ending the game and having an impact, not just being a sub to help out tired legs, but to actually change the game for us. And I thought he did that really well. So sorry for that long one on Gyokeres, but I wanted to go into that. I thought it was important. In terms of the match report and the rest of the game, look, we were crossing the ball quite early today, which I liked, actually. It created a bit of chaos. Declan Rice had a decent shot from wide. Jesus didn't have a good game. We'll talk about the player ratings, but I like the way him and Trossard were alternating, pulling out wide. Havertz as well was moving. So it was a very fluid front three. All 3 of the front 4 were very fluid. Madueke was hugging the touchline a lot, which was interesting. He basically held position while everyone else kind of moved around him, which is probably quite a clever way to use those players. And then obviously we get the goal from Zubimendi. Before we talk about that goal, though, I think Brobby should be sent off. I think that's a high boot. I think what might save him is if this is the foot, he's caught him with the top and then sort of bounced off it. I know sound like I'm making excuses, but for me that's a red card. I get that some wouldn't give that, but I think it is. The Romero one earlier, what's he doing, by the way, Romero? But the Romero one earlier, that's a red as well, even if he does get some of the ball. I think you've got to look at action, aggression, pace in the tackle, and with both Brobby and Romero, though you can make excuses for either being yellows, not reds, I think the other things I mentioned, the aggression, the pace, all that, the stance, they scream red to me. So I think Brobby should have been sent off as well. Zubimendi, who was on the end of that tackle, I'm surprised it didn't hurt him more. Probably because Brobby actually was pulling out on contact quite quick. But I thought the strike from Zubimendi was brilliant. Now, credit to Madueke, he didn't have a great game, but what I liked about Madueke is he's the one who gets in front of the defender to win the ball back in the final third, and suddenly we're moving. We go through the gears, and Trossard does brilliantly too, because he doesn't give it to Zubimendi to take a touch and cross. He rolls it to Zubimendi and says, hit it, have a go. From an area of the pitch, funny, I thought Trossard would love to hit the ball from. An area of the pitch that I think Trossard scored some decent goals from in his career. Zubimendi takes it really well, and the spin, the whip, because he hits it quite flat, but just with enough slice for it to curl back in, and it almost doesn't hit the inside of the post. It almost hits like bang on the post, but the spin carries it across the goal line. I mean, it was a brilliant strike from Martin Zubimendi, and we've been doing that a lot this season. That ability to just put our laces through it from zone 14, which is the area outside the D of the penalty area. We have been really good from that this season, really good, and it is getting us cheap but important goals. I say cheap goals because there's not that much craftsmanship outside of the individual being brilliant, and we needed more of that this season. We got it from Eze a bit, we got it from Trossard, we got it from Zubimendi a few times, and we need to keep making sure we're shooting on sight, because Teams are going to be difficult to break down. They just are. So you need some magic sometimes. I was then losing my head a little bit, I'll be honest, at Jesus being offside. He had a good game, I thought, today, Havertz, and he plays Jesus on. I've got no issue with you being slightly off when it's quite tight like that, because as much as you're trying to stay on, there's another defender trying to play you off. That's difficult. I think it's kind of unacceptable to be offside from your half like that. And he was offside 3-4 times today, Jesus, and it was driving me insane, because all of them, I just thought, well, there was no reason to be offside. I wasn't looking at it going, oh, I kind of get it. No, it was that frustrated me. I thought he was one of our worst performers on the day, Jesus. Calafiori struggled too. Timber in the final third was very frustrating, but defensively did well. It's just the story of who Jurriën Timber is. But on to more positives. Yeah, Kai Havertz looked good. Like the fact that we've gone a bit more 4-4-2. I thought Arteta did brilliantly with the rotation in the squad to get on the pitch what we needed for Sunderland in particular. And then, yeah, we've touched on Gyokeres, but Martinelli, what a brilliant, brilliant cameo off the bench. Showed loads of pace, worked really hard, nearly had a goal at the end himself. I think it was the last kick of the game, straight at Roofs. But he does brilliantly to use his pace to get around the Sunderland defender. And I'll be honest, I think he does want to take the shot. But he does well to roll it to Gyokeres, and yeah, he makes that goal happen. But I thought Marte looked great. This is a few cameo. I thought he was great against Chelsea. I thought he was in a brilliant, brilliant cameo against Leeds, and really good today. So this is 3 games in a row, and Martinelli, I think, has really looked something like the old Martinelli, where he's just playing with a real intensity, drive, doing things quickly, getting output, getting assists. And is he getting goals? Can't remember if he scored last week. I don't think he did. But just, there's output to his game as well, because he was always someone that we'd praise his numbers, and he's been doing that most of this season. But I think Marte's having a good season, to be fair. I think he is having a good season. He's not quite at the level where you go, oh, you have to get him in the team. But I do think he's putting pressure on Madueke on that right wing. But then I like him as a super sub. I hate to say it, but bring him on against Leeds, bring him on in this game as well. It makes a difference. I think it's a real weapon for us. So fair play to him. Arsenal needed to win that, people. Winning that game means that we have now gone 9 points clear of Man City. And I think Villa drew. So, well, they're out of sight now. I mean, let's have a little look. Aston Villa drew, which means they're on 47 points. So United are gaining on them. I think they play at Old Trafford, so that's going to be huge. And we are now, we're 9 ahead of Villa. Well, we're 9 ahead of Villa, and we're 9 ahead of City, have a game in hand. So I think, that rules Villa out of the title race. I think we have to be respectful and include them in those conversations because of the great work they've done this season. But that's ultimately 1 win in their last 4. And I know Arsenal, funnily enough, had that kind of form themselves not long ago. But it's just not enough to win a title when you're falling behind and you're the chasers. So, yeah, all eyes on Anfield tomorrow. Of course, we'll do a reaction here on Goonerverse News. But all eyes on that massive, massive game, which feels, I said that this could be a title. I feel like this is a weekend in the season that I think we're just going to look back on. I really do. And even if City win tomorrow, that's kind of what I mean. Even though we did our jobs today, if they win at Anfield, what that could do for their belief. So I think it's pretty imperative they drop points tomorrow. Look, also in a great position, 6 points ahead. And, I saw another piece of content that, they could win at Anfield, look up the table and go, oh, still 6 points. We've won at Anfield and we still feel so far off. But at least they'll know there's plenty of football to go. So we do need a favour from Liverpool. We do. I say we need. Look, we did our job. What we needed to do? We needed to win. I said this was a must win. We needed to win. Everything else, look, you can look at it in so many different ways. But I think with City going there, it was imperative that we put ourselves in a position where we applied some scoreboard pressure on City. And we have done that. They know now that if they don't win, it's 8 or 9 points. And that does feel like a really, really, really big gap. Let me know your man of the match in the comment section below. I've got to be honest, I don't know how many stood out as the clearly best player on the pitch, but I'd love to know, and then I'll keep them in mind for the player ratings, which is live a little bit later. Big thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll be back for Brentford on Thursday, and obviously any news will come on Goonerverse News, and there's a player ratings later, so look out for that.